In a small, forgotten garage at the edge of town, Ethan Brooks, an honest mechanic just scraping by, helps a desperate stranger fix her luxury car for free. He has no idea that this simple act of kindness will change his life forever. Because when the woman returns the very next day, she's no longer just a stranded driver. She's his new boss. But as their worlds collide, Ethan discovers she's hiding secrets deeper than her wealth. Can one act of generosity bridge their two worlds, or will it tear them apart? Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. Where in the world are you watching from? Ethan Brooks rubbed the back of his neck wearily, glancing around the dimly lit garage as the fading sunlight filtered through cracked windows, casting long shadows on the oil-stained floor. The scent of grease and rust clung to the air like a heavy perfume, a comforting but harsh reminder of the hard labor that defined his days. Every muscle in his body ached, his knuckles scraped raw from wrestling with stubborn bolts and corroded engine parts. The sound of the shop door creaking open jolted him from his fatigue. Turning around, he saw Mrs. Bennet standing hesitantly at the entrance, clutching a wicker basket tightly in her frail hands. Her eyes, lined with age and worry, searched his face uncertainly before brightening into a soft smile. "Good evening, Ethan," she said gently, stepping forward slowly. "I brought you something. It's not much. Just a few biscuits I baked this afternoon." Ethan smiled warmly, walking over and taking the basket carefully from her trembling grasp. "Mrs. Bennet, you didn't have to do this," he said softly, his voice filled with genuine gratitude. She waved her hand dismissively, though he noticed the slight tremor in her fingers. "It's nothing, compared to how much you do for all of us, Ethan. You fixed my car more times than I can count, even when I had nothing to give you." His throat tightened slightly, emotions surging. He knew how little she had, how difficult it was for her to make ends meet. Yet, there she was, thinking of him. "Well," he began, trying to lighten the mood. "Your biscuits might just be the reason I stay open." She chuckled gently, the sound easing the weariness from his bones for just a moment. Her eyes grew serious again, though, and she reached out, gently touching his arm. "You're a good man, Ethan. But remember to take care of yourself, too." He nodded solemnly, knowing the truth behind her words. Bills piled high on the cramped desk in the small, cluttered office, each envelope a harsh reminder of the precarious line he walked daily. Ethan had always believed in putting others first, trusting that somehow things would work out. Yet lately, he'd started questioning if that optimism was sustainable. Watching Mrs. Bennet leave, Ethan sighed deeply, the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. But as he turned back to the half-fixed truck, still waiting for his attention, determination flared anew in his heart. He might not have much, but what little he had, he'd keep giving, because in his world, kindness wasn't a choice. It was who he was. Ethan was just about to close up the garage when the unmistakable growl of an engine, strained and clearly in trouble, caught his attention. He turned to see a sleek sports car slowly pulling to the roadside just outside the shop, sputtering to a shaky halt under the dim glow of the street lamp. Wiping his hands on a rag, Ethan stepped outside, squinting slightly as he took in the luxurious silhouette of the car, completely out of place amidst the worn-out pickups and humble sedans of their small town. The door opened swiftly, and a woman stepped out, her posture radiating tension. She wore a tailored blazer and sleek skirt, clothing that spoke more of high-rise offices than roadside breakdowns. She looked around, clearly lost. Frustration etched deeply into her delicate features. "Unbelievable," she muttered under her breath, staring at her smoking engine, as if it had personally betrayed her. She turned sharply, noticing Ethan approaching cautiously. "Need some help?" Ethan offered gently, trying to ease the evident stress he saw in her eyes. She paused, as if only just now, truly noticing him, then nodded with a tight smile. "That would be great, actually. It just died out of nowhere." Ethan moved closer, noticing her subtle scent of expensive perfume mixing with the harsh odor of burning coolant. "Mind popping the hood?" he asked, his voice steady and reassuring. Amelia quickly returned to the driver's side and released the hood latch, the metal giving way with a soft click. Ethan propped it open, immediately greeted by a rush of steam. A brief inspection revealed a split radiator hose, clearly worn through by constant use. Ethan glanced back at Amelia, who was anxiously checking her watch. "It's not as bad as it looks," Ethan reassured her, sensing her impatience. "But it's going to take a little time." She exhaled deeply, shoulders dropping as though the entire weight of the day had finally crashed down on her. "Time is something I don't have," she murmured, almost to herself. Ethan offered a sympathetic smile. "I'll do everything I can to get you moving again as quickly as possible. Why don't you wait inside? There's coffee. It's not fancy, but it's hot." Amelia hesitated, clearly surprised by his kindness. Finally, a small, grateful smile broke through her tension. "Thank you, really. I'm Amelia Hartwell, by the way." "Ethan Brooks," he replied warmly, noting the softening in her posture. "Don't worry, Amelia. I'll get you back on the road in no time." Ethan wiped his forehead, leaving a faint streak of grease behind as he tightened the last clamp on the newly replaced radiator hose. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, the weight of Amelia's anxious gaze pressing against his back, making him acutely aware of each passing minute. Behind him, Amelia stood quietly near the doorway of the garage, arms crossed protectively, her expensive clothes somehow untouched by the gritty surroundings. As he lowered the hood, he turned to see her checking her watch again, worry etching lines into her elegant face. Ethan cleared his throat gently, offering her a reassuring smile. "All done," he announced softly, breaking the thick tension in the air. Relief flooded Amelia's features, quickly replaced by determination as she pulled out her wallet. "How much do I owe you?" she asked briskly, her fingers already searching through the crisp bills. Ethan hesitated for a split second, taking in the polished appearance that marked her as worlds away from his modest garage. He saw beneath that composed exterior the shadows of stress and uncertainty she'd briefly let slip earlier. Ethan shook his head gently, his voice steady and firm. "No charge." Amelia froze, her wallet held awkwardly in midair. "No charge?" she repeated incredulously, suspicion narrowing her eyes slightly. "I can pay, it's not a problem." He raised his hand politely, smiling a little. "I'm sure you can, but you don't have to, Amelia. Consider this my good deed for the day." She stared at him, skepticism warring with confusion. "But why? You hardly know me." Ethan met her questioning gaze calmly. "I might not know you personally, but I know what it feels like to be stuck and stressed, having a day that just won't quit. Sometimes the best thing anyone can give you is a little kindness." Amelia's shoulders seemed to soften at his words, the tight line of her lips easing slightly. Her eyes searched his face, as if trying to discern a hidden motive, but finding only sincerity reflected back. "Well, I don't know how to thank you," she finally admitted quietly, her tone softer now, stripped of its earlier formality. He shrugged gently, a warm expression lighting his eyes. "Just pay it forward," he suggested sincerely. "When you find someone else who needs it, someone who's having one of those impossible days, help them. That's payment enough." She considered his words carefully, her gaze lingering on him a moment longer than necessary. Slowly she tucked the wallet back into her purse and nodded decisively, the ghost of a genuine smile touching her lips for the first time. "I will, Ethan. Thank you." He watched quietly as Amelia climbed back into her sleek car, its engine roaring to life smoothly beneath her fingertips. Ethan stood still, hands buried deep in his pockets, watching until her taillights vanished into the night. As he finally closed the garage doors, a sense of calm satisfaction filled him, unaware that the seeds of an encounter destined to change his entire life had just been planted. The next morning, sunlight flooded Ethan's modest garage, casting long shadows across worn concrete floors and shelves piled high with spare parts. He was deep under the hood of an old pickup truck, absorbed in the familiar rhythm of tightening bolts and reconnecting wires, when the distinctive hum of a familiar engine reached his ears. Ethan straightened, his heartbeat quickening slightly at the sight of Amelia's sleek sports car pulling back into his lot. He wiped his hands hastily, leaving traces of grease behind as Amelia stepped out. This time her attire was even more polished, a tailored suit that clung gracefully to her slender figure, hair cascading in perfectly arranged waves over her shoulders. She exuded authority, elegance, and something else, an uncertainty that softened her otherwise commanding presence. "Amelia," he greeted her cautiously, trying not to let his confusion show. "Is there another problem with your car?" "No, the car's fine," she replied quickly, her tone unreadable. As her eyes briefly swept around the garage, she drew in a slow breath, as if steeling herself for something difficult. "I'm here for a different reason today, Ethan." He felt a sudden flicker of worry in his chest, sensing the gravity in her voice. "All right," he replied carefully, stepping closer, curiosity blending with apprehension. Amelia hesitated, her posture rigid as she seemed to weigh her next words. Finally, she looked up, eyes meeting his directly. "I didn't get to tell you yesterday who I really am. Fully, I mean." Ethan's brows furrowed slightly. "Who you really are?" She nodded slowly, her expression serious. "My name is Amelia Hartwell, and as of yesterday morning, I'm officially the CEO of Hartwell Enterprises, the company that just bought your garage." A wave of disbelief washed over Ethan, leaving him momentarily speechless. He felt as though the floor had shifted beneath him. The garage was everything, his lifeline, his connection to the community. His eyes searched Amelia's face for a trace of deception or a cruel joke, but he found only solemn sincerity. "You own my garage?" Ethan finally managed, his voice carrying a slight tremor despite his efforts to remain calm. "Why didn't you say anything yesterday?" "I didn't know how," Amelia admitted softly, her polished composure faltering slightly, revealing genuine discomfort. "I wasn't expecting someone like you, someone generous, someone genuine." The air felt heavy, thick with questions neither of them yet knew how to voice. Ethan exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair, leaving smudges of grease behind. "And now?" he asked quietly, guardedly. "What does this mean for me, for us?" Amelia paused, clearly conflicted, before her gaze softened again, something sincere shimmering beneath the veneer of power. "I'm not here to make your life difficult, Ethan, but things will change. They have to. I'm here today because I believe in transparency and because you deserve honesty after what you did for me yesterday." Ethan stood silently, absorbing the truth that now lingered between them like an uncertain promise. He watched Amelia carefully, realizing that his simple act of kindness had unknowingly tied their lives together. He could sense the future shifting, and suddenly it wasn't just his job or his garage at stake, it was everything. Ethan glanced at the neatly typed memo in his hand again, feeling a pang of unease. The simple black ink on crisp white paper seemed cold and unfamiliar compared to the casual, comfortable disorder of his usual routine. Hartwell Enterprises' logo stared back at him impassively, a stark reminder that his small-town garage was no longer his own. New uniforms, detailed work schedules, inventory tracking software, policies upon policies that made Ethan's head spin. What had once been his quiet refuge now felt restrictive, as though he'd been thrown into a world where everything he valued was suddenly measured by efficiency, margins, and quarterly reports. Sighing heavily, he tossed the paper onto his cluttered desk and leaned back, running his hands through his messy hair. He had known change was coming when Amelia revealed herself as his new boss, but he'd underestimated how invasive those changes would be. Outside his cramped office, Amelia moved awkwardly through the garage, clearly trying to familiarize herself with the gritty surroundings. She looked out of place in her immaculate blouse and pressed slacks, carefully sidestepping oil stains on the concrete floor, as she smiled hesitantly at the mechanics who eyed her warily. "Good morning," she offered gently. But her refined accent and poised demeanor only emphasized the gap between her and the workers. Ethan watched silently as Pete, one of his oldest employees, barely nodded back, his expression guarded. Amelia noticed and approached Ethan's office, hesitating briefly before knocking softly on the door frame. He motioned her in reluctantly, his gaze lingering briefly on the perfectly polished shoes she wore. "How's everything going?" she asked cautiously, folding her arms across her chest, as if bracing for bad news. Ethan sighed again, choosing honesty over politeness. "People aren't happy, Amelia. The uniforms, the forms, it's a lot of change at once." Amelia nodded slowly, her carefully masked uncertainty slipping through. "I know it's overwhelming, but these policies are necessary to keep the business running smoothly. Hartwell Enterprises has a certain standard," Ethan interrupted, frustration coloring his tone. "This isn't a big city dealership, Amelia. It's a community garage. People come here because they trust us, because they feel comfortable. You can't quantify that with forms and spreadsheets." Amelia's eyes softened, her posture easing slightly. She exhaled deeply, her voice quieter now. "I get it, Ethan, believe me. But change doesn't have to be bad. Give it some time." He held her gaze steadily, searching for sincerity behind her polished professionalism. Finally, he nodded, albeit grudgingly. "All right, we'll try." As Amelia walked away, Ethan felt his chest tighten with conflicting emotions. He wanted to trust her intentions, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the very heart of his garage, his refuge, was slipping away piece by piece. He turned back to the paperwork, the unfamiliar policies glaring at him like an unsolvable puzzle, realizing he might have underestimated just how much everything was about to change. Ethan felt the heavy tension the moment he stepped into the break room, the low murmur of concerned voices cutting abruptly short as soon as he appeared. His co-workers, men and women he'd spent countless days beside, shoulder to shoulder under cars, sharing laughter and frustrations, now stared at him silently, their faces filled with anxiety. Pete finally broke the silence, leaning forward, his worn hands clasped tightly together. "Ethan, you need to tell us what's really going on. Rumors are spreading. Layoffs, budget cuts, the new boss making demands none of us can keep up with." Ethan sighed, his shoulders sagging slightly under the weight of their worried eyes. "I promise you all, Amelia's not here to gut the place. She's just trying to make improvements. Different doesn't necessarily mean worse." "Improvements?" Carla interjected sharply, pushing back her chair. Her dark eyes flashed with frustration, and Ethan could see the anger barely masking her fear. "We've never needed fancy software or pressed uniforms to get the job done. Why can't she just let us do our jobs?" Ethan held up a hand gently, trying to calm the brewing storm he could see coming. "Listen, I understand how you feel, but she's under pressure too. The company's invested a lot, and she needs to prove to them it's worth it." Pete shook his head, frustration plain in his rugged features. "And if we can't meet these new standards, what then? We get replaced by people who can." "That won't happen," Ethan responded firmly, hoping the confidence in his voice was convincing enough, though doubts crept quietly at the edges of his mind. "I'll make sure Amelia understands where we're coming from. Just give me some time," Carla exhaled deeply, clearly unconvinced, but nodded slowly. "All right, Ethan, but this isn't just a paycheck for us. It's our lives, our families. Make her see that." Ethan stepped out of the break room feeling the heavy responsibility pressing down on him more intensely than ever. He made his way toward Amelia's makeshift office, knocking softly before stepping inside. She glanced up quickly from a stack of reports, surprise flickering across her face before fading into guarded politeness. "Is everything all right?" she asked, noting the seriousness in his expression. "Not exactly," Ethan admitted gently, stepping closer and taking a seat across from her. "Look, Amelia, the team, they're scared. They're hearing rumors, layoffs, losing their jobs. You need to talk to them directly. They need to hear the truth from you." Amelia's eyes widened slightly, her carefully maintained composure slipping momentarily. "Ethan, I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm trying to secure the future, not destroy it." Ethan softened his tone, realizing that Amelia, despite her confidence and corporate poise, was struggling too. "Then you need to tell them exactly that. Show them you're human. They need reassurance, not more memos." Amelia studied his face, searching his earnest expression before finally nodding slowly, determination returning to her features. "You're right. I'll speak with them tomorrow." As Ethan left her office, he felt cautiously optimistic, even though uncertainty lingered thickly around him. He knew the challenges weren't over, but at least for tonight, there was a chance, however slim, that things could begin to mend. Ethan glanced across the bustling diner, the familiar hum of local chatter echoing comfortably around him. Amelia, sitting across the booth, seemed anything but comfortable. She was tense, her posture rigid, her delicate fingers anxiously twisting the edge of a napkin. Ethan knew she felt the stares, the hushed whispers, the subtle but clear mistrust radiating from nearly every table around them. "You know, it's okay to relax," Ethan said softly, giving her an encouraging smile. "They're curious, that's all. They just don't know you yet." Amelia glanced around briefly, the uncertainty in her eyes making her look strangely vulnerable. "I feel like an intruder," she admitted quietly, voice barely above a whisper. "I can tell they're not happy about me or the changes I'm making." Ethan shook his head, leaning forward slightly. "They're wary of the unknown. To them, Hartwell Enterprises feels big, faceless, something that doesn't understand or care about small towns. You have to show them that you're not just a CEO, Amelia. You're a person too." Before Amelia could reply, Clara, the diner's waitress and unofficial town matriarch, approached their table. Her stern eyes settled sharply on Amelia before softening slightly when she met Ethan's warm, steady gaze. "Coffee?" Clara asked briskly, placing 2 mugs down without waiting for a response. "Thanks, Clara," Ethan said gently, catching her gaze with a meaningful look. "This is Amelia Hartwell, the new owner of the garage." Clara raised an eyebrow skeptically. "We know who she is, Ethan," she replied dryly. "Half the town is talking about her." Amelia shifted uncomfortably, her cheeks faintly coloring, but Ethan pressed on smoothly, keeping his tone friendly and sincere. "You know, Clara, Amelia's working hard to keep the garage running. She's doing her best to protect everyone's jobs. Maybe the town could give her a fair chance." Clara hesitated, glancing from Ethan's calm face to Amelia's clearly nervous one. Finally, she sighed deeply, her expression softening just slightly. "Well, time will tell, won't it?" She turned back toward Amelia, her tone still firm but warmer. "Folks here aren't fancy, Miss Hartwell, but they do have good hearts. Treat them right, and they'll stand by you." Amelia nodded earnestly, visibly relieved. "That's all I want, just a fair chance." As Clara walked away, Ethan noticed a few people around the diner subtly relax their guarded expressions, the quiet tension easing just a bit. Amelia took a slow sip of coffee, finally meeting his eyes again. "Thank you, Ethan. You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," he responded softly, his eyes gentle yet serious. "You deserve a chance here, Amelia. People just need to see who you really are." She studied his face thoughtfully, her expression gradually warming into a genuine smile. "Maybe it's not just them who needs to see who I really am," she murmured softly. "Maybe I do too." Ethan watched her quietly, recognizing the sincerity in her voice and realizing that, for Amelia Hartwell, this small-town diner and the people in it might become more than just a business venture. It might just become home. The evening sky had darkened into a deep indigo, dotted with a faint scattering of stars as Ethan finished up the last repairs of the day. He was just washing the grime off his hands when he saw Amelia standing quietly at the edge of the open garage door, silhouetted softly by the dim street lamp outside. Her gaze seemed distant, her shoulders weighted down by an invisible burden. "Amelia?" Ethan called gently, concern edging into his voice as he approached her cautiously. She turned slowly, and for a moment he saw rare vulnerability reflected clearly in her eyes. "Sorry to disturb you," she murmured softly, her voice barely audible over the distant hum of crickets. She hesitated, wrapping her arms protectively around herself. "I just needed someone to talk to, someone who isn't expecting perfection from me." Ethan's brows furrowed slightly. Sensing the turmoil beneath her poised exterior, he stepped closer, his tone gentle yet firm. "What's wrong?" She sighed deeply, glancing down at the cracked concrete floor as if searching for strength. "I don't think I'm cut out for this," she admitted quietly. Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the struggle she'd clearly tried to hide. "Everyone at Hartwell expects me to fail, the board, my employees, even the town. Sometimes it feels like the entire world is just watching, waiting for me to make a mistake." Ethan listened intently, feeling his chest tighten with empathy. Amelia had always seemed so polished, so composed, yet standing here now, he saw someone entirely different, a woman burdened by expectations that felt impossible to fulfill. "Amelia, no one expects perfection," Ethan responded softly. "Not from you, not from anyone. All people really want is honesty and someone who cares. And believe me, you've shown plenty of both." She shook her head, eyes glistening in the pale light. "But what if caring isn't enough? What if I'm not enough?" She paused, breathing shakily. "I inherited this company from my father. He built it from nothing. If I fail, I won't just be letting myself down. I'll be letting him down. I'll be proving every critic right." Ethan moved closer, his voice quieter but filled with conviction. "Listen, Amelia, everyone is scared sometimes. Everyone doubts themselves, even the strongest people. But courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about facing your fears despite them." Amelia's gaze lifted to meet his, vulnerability and gratitude clearly visible in her expression. "You really believe that?" she asked softly, the uncertainty slowly fading from her voice. He nodded firmly, a reassuring smile softening his features. "Absolutely. You've faced down skepticism and criticism every single day, but you're still here, still fighting. That's strength, Amelia, even if you don't see it yet." She exhaled slowly, the tension in her shoulders visibly easing as a small, genuine smile touched her lips. "Thank you, Ethan. I don't think you realize how much I needed to hear that." He smiled back warmly, his expression gentle but sincere. "You're not alone, Amelia. Remember that." As Amelia finally stepped away, heading back to her car, Ethan watched quietly, knowing that tonight something important had shifted between them. For the first time, Amelia had let down her walls, trusting him with her deepest fears. He felt an undeniable bond forming, fragile yet powerful, and silently hoped he'd given her enough strength to face whatever came next. Morning sunlight filtered warmly into the garage, reflecting off polished tools and freshly cleaned workstations. Amelia stood by the newly installed inventory system, tapping commands cautiously into the tablet, her brow furrowed in concentration. Ethan watched her from across the room, quietly impressed by how earnestly she'd thrown herself into learning every detail. "You're getting the hang of it quicker than I expected," he remarked gently, approaching her side with a supportive smile. "This place almost feels like a real business now." Amelia glanced up, eyes sparkling with mild amusement. "Almost?" He chuckled softly, gesturing around the shop. "There's still heart here. That's the difference. You didn't erase that, Amelia. I didn't think that would happen." She relaxed visibly, setting down the tablet and turning fully toward him, sincerity clear in her expression. "I never wanted to take away the spirit of this place, Ethan. I only wanted to enhance it, make it strong enough to thrive." Ethan nodded slowly, appreciating her honesty. "I see that now. I was stubborn at first, but the changes you've made, they're good. They're necessary." Amelia hesitated, then reached across the workbench, handing him a folder she'd been clutching nervously. "There's something else I want your opinion on. I drafted plans to renovate the waiting area, making it more comfortable for customers. But I wanted your input first. Your perspective matters." Ethan took the folder carefully, flipping through sketches and design proposals, feeling a genuine spark of enthusiasm. The plans were thoughtful, practical, yet still warm and welcoming. It was exactly the balance he'd struggled to maintain on his own. "These are great," he said earnestly, meeting her uncertain gaze. "Really? You've thought of things I never would have." She exhaled a quiet sigh of relief, tension fading from her face. "Good, because I know how much this place means to you and to everyone who works here. I want to help, Ethan, not as an outsider, but as someone who genuinely respects what you've built." Ethan studied her closely, seeing the sincerity reflected in her careful expression. For the first time since Hartwell Enterprises had taken over, he didn't feel wary or defensive. Instead, he felt genuine gratitude and respect. "You know, when you first showed up, I thought you'd never understand what we were about," he admitted quietly, "but you proved me wrong." Amelia smiled softly, her eyes gentle and open. "I've learned a lot from you too, Ethan, about humility, patience, and genuine kindness, qualities that are rare in my world." He returned her smile warmly, feeling a sense of partnership solidifying between them, built on mutual respect and understanding. "We might actually make a good team," he admitted lightly, though he meant every word. Amelia's smile deepened, her confidence visibly growing. "I think we already do." As Ethan glanced around the improved shop, a new sense of pride surged through him, mingling warmly with his respect for Amelia. Together they had transformed the garage, not just physically, but emotionally. It was no longer just his shop or her business venture. It was theirs, a place they'd built together. And for the first time, he was genuinely excited about the future they were shaping side by side. Ethan felt the change before he even stepped fully inside Clara's diner. Conversations dimmed slightly as eyes shifted toward him, murmurs quiet but distinctly curious. He paused, feeling an uncomfortable prickle down his spine as he made his way slowly to the counter. Clara gave him an odd, knowing look as she poured his usual coffee, setting the mug down with a deliberate clink. "Thanks," Ethan said quietly, sensing the weight behind her gaze. "Everything all right, Clara?" She raised an eyebrow, leaning in closer with an almost conspiratorial tone. "People are talking, Ethan. You and Miss Hartwell have been spending an awful lot of time together." Ethan exhaled sharply, a wave of frustration rising inside him. "Amelia and I are working together. We're trying to save the garage. Nothing more." Clara shrugged, not entirely convinced. "Well, I'm just saying what folks are seeing. She's a city woman, Ethan. You know how people get when outsiders come around." "Amelia's not an outsider," Ethan replied firmly, his voice quieter but steady. "She's trying hard to be part of this town. She deserves better." Clara sighed, softening slightly, her stern eyes warming just a fraction. "Then you better make that clear to everyone else, because gossip moves faster than facts around here." Just then the diner door chimed softly, and Ethan turned to see Amelia walk in, pausing as the atmosphere shifted again. Eyes turned discreetly toward her, the whispered conversations resuming with renewed intensity. Amelia's eyes met Ethan's briefly, confusion and vulnerability flickering in her expression, before she quickly masked it with practiced composure. "Amelia?" Ethan greeted her gently, feeling a surge of protectiveness as she approached cautiously. "We need to talk." She nodded, stepping closer and lowering her voice. "Did something happen?" Ethan guided her to a quieter corner, away from the curious stares and strained whispers. He sighed deeply, running a weary hand through his hair. "People are talking about us. They think we're involved." Amelia's eyes widened, a faint blush rising to her cheeks before she quickly recovered. "That's absurd," she said quietly, her voice carrying an edge of irritation. "We're just trying to do our jobs." "I know," Ethan responded softly, understanding her frustration. "But it's a small town, and gossip spreads fast. We just need to be clear with everyone that there's nothing romantic between us." Amelia hesitated, her eyes flickering away from his for just a moment. "Of course," she murmured quietly. I'll handle it. He studied her carefully, noting the brief uncertainty that flashed across her composed features. Are you okay? She straightened slightly, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I'm fine. I'm used to people talking, Ethan. It's part of my job. It just caught me off guard this time. Ethan nodded gently, watching as she left the diner, head held high but posture tense. He felt an unexpected pang of regret at their necessary denial, a tiny voice in the back of his mind whispering doubts he didn't dare acknowledge. Shaking off those thoughts, he returned to his seat, determined to ignore the whispers, though the uncomfortable reality lingered heavily. Maybe there was something more between them, something neither was quite ready to admit, even to themselves. Ethan sat at his mother's worn kitchen table, fingers wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee, the familiar scent of home doing little to ease the tension that hung thickly in the air. His mother paced slowly near the stove, her usually gentle expression tight with worry. "Ethan, you need to think about what you're doing," she finally said, her voice firm but edged with genuine concern. "People are talking. This woman, Amelia, she isn't one of us. She doesn't understand our ways." Ethan sighed heavily, setting the coffee down with more force than he intended. "Mom, she's not the enemy. Amelia is trying to help the garage survive. We need the business. It's not personal." His older brother, Jason, leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed skeptically. "It seems pretty personal to me," Jason said sharply, his tone harsh. "You spend all your time with her now. People are saying you've forgotten where you come from." Ethan bristled, his frustration rising. "That's ridiculous. I'm working, trying to keep people employed. Your neighbors, our friends." "Are you sure that's all it is?" Jason challenged, eyes narrowing. "Because from what I've heard, you're getting too close. She's changing you, Ethan." Ethan's jaw tightened as he fought to keep his composure. "She's changing the business, modernizing things so we can stay open. That doesn't mean she's changing me." His mother paused, eyes filled with sadness as she approached him gently, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Honey, we know you. Your heart's always in the right place. But what if she's just using you? People from her world, they don't stay. They leave as quickly as they come." Ethan's expression softened slightly, feeling a pang of uncertainty as his mother's words resonated deeply. "You don't know her like I do," he murmured quietly. "Amelia's different. She cares. She's not here to hurt anyone." Jason shook his head, clearly unconvinced. "And when she's done fixing things her way, what then? She'll head back to her city, Ethan, leaving you to pick up the pieces. You'll be the one left behind." Ethan stood abruptly, frustration flaring. "I can't believe you both are so ready to judge her without giving her a chance. Amelia might be from the city, but she's here now, and she's doing everything she can for us. Why can't you trust my judgment on this?" His mother's eyes filled with quiet sorrow. "Because we've seen this before, Ethan. We've seen good people hurt when outsiders come in, promising big things. You need to protect yourself, protect your heart." Ethan felt a deep ache in his chest, torn between loyalty to his family and the undeniable respect and perhaps something more he'd developed for Amelia. He stepped toward the door, pausing briefly to glance back at his family. "I'll think about what you said, but Amelia deserves better than judgment and suspicion. She deserves a fair chance." As Ethan walked out into the chilly evening air, he felt more conflicted than ever. The lines between personal and professional had blurred, and for the first time, Ethan questioned whether following his heart was truly the right decision, or if he was blindly walking into a storm he wasn't prepared for. Amelia stood silently by the large windows of her downtown office, watching the steady rain trace cold lines down the glass. Behind her, the spacious conference room buzzed with tension, filled with sharply dressed board members whose scrutinizing eyes tracked her every move. "You can't avoid this, Amelia," Roger Barlow, the board's senior member, declared bluntly, his deep voice echoing through the room. "The garage is bleeding resources. It's time to get real. We need drastic cost-cutting measures immediately." Amelia turned slowly, her expression controlled despite the anxious storm brewing inside her. "I understand your concerns, Roger, but you have to see the bigger picture. This investment will pay off. The community needs the garage, and they trust us." Roger shook his head, frustration clear on his aging face. "Amelia, sentimentality doesn't make profits. You're new to leadership, so let me remind you, tough decisions keep businesses alive. Jobs will have to go, starting with your highest-paid mechanic, Ethan Brooks." Amelia felt her heart lurch, though she kept her composure, masking the turmoil beneath her calm exterior. "Cutting Ethan would cripple the garage's effectiveness," she argued firmly, voice steady despite the panic clawing at her throat. "He's essential to its operations and respected by everyone there." Roger's eyes hardened. "Everyone is replaceable. Brooks' salary alone is higher than any other mechanic at the facility. Removing him would immediately stabilize our margins." Amelia clenched her fists discreetly at her sides, anger simmering under her poised surface. "This isn't just about numbers. Ethan's the heart of that place. Without him, we risk losing the trust we've worked so hard to build." The other board members exchanged impatient glances, murmuring quietly among themselves. Roger's voice softened slightly, attempting persuasion rather than authority. "We know you've grown attached to the garage and its people, Amelia, but leadership requires detachment. You must choose between sentimentality and practicality." She turned away briefly, taking a deep, steadying breath, staring again at the gray skies outside. She could see Ethan's face clearly in her mind, the sincerity in his eyes, the unwavering kindness he'd shown from the start. Losing him would mean betraying the very values she wanted to uphold. "I'll find another solution," she stated resolutely, turning back toward the board. "Give me 1 week. Let me prove to you we can keep Ethan and still maintain profitability." Roger studied her skeptically, silence lingering thickly before he finally nodded, grudgingly granting her reprieve. "Fine, 1 week, Amelia, but be clear. If the numbers don't add up, Brooks goes. There won't be another chance." Amelia nodded curtly, her resolve firm despite the heaviness weighing on her chest. As the board filed out slowly, she sank back into her chair, feeling drained yet determined. Ethan's livelihood, and perhaps something deeper, rested squarely on her shoulders now. The stakes were unbearably high, but she wasn't about to back down without a fight. The conference room felt colder than usual, the sterile white walls seeming to close in tighter around Amelia as the board members settled into their seats. Amelia took her position at the head of the table, heart beating rapidly in her chest, fully aware of the gravity of this meeting. Roger cleared his throat, his expression expectant and rigid. "Amelia, your week is up. I assume you've considered our position regarding Ethan Brooks?" Amelia met his gaze squarely, her voice strong despite the trembling in her hands, which she discreetly hid beneath the table. "I have, and I'm not letting Ethan go." A tense silence filled the room, punctuated only by the distant hum of traffic from the street below. Roger raised an eyebrow sharply, his patience clearly wearing thin. "We've been over this, Amelia. His salary alone would put us back on track. You can't let emotions cloud your judgment." She leaned forward slightly, determination flaring brightly in her eyes. "This isn't about emotions, Roger. This is about long-term vision. Ethan Brooks isn't just an employee. He's integral to the very survival of that garage. He's the reason the community trusts us. If we lose him, we risk losing our entire customer base." Roger's expression darkened, frustration barely contained. "Amelia, your loyalty is admirable, but this isn't charity. Business demands tough decisions." Amelia stood abruptly, her composure steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "And leadership demands courage. I've listened carefully to all your concerns, but you haven't been down to that garage. You haven't seen Ethan working late every night, unpaid, to help struggling families. You haven't watched him turn skeptics into loyal customers through sheer honesty and dedication. Cutting him now might boost your short-term profits, but it would destroy the goodwill we've painstakingly built." Roger sat back, momentarily speechless as the other board members exchanged uncertain glances. Amelia pressed on firmly, knowing this was her moment to turn the tide. "I'm asking you for your trust. Ethan Brooks is worth the investment. I'm willing to stake my reputation on it," she said confidently, her voice carrying clearly through the tense silence. After a pause that seemed to stretch endlessly, one of the quieter board members finally spoke up, voice cautious yet thoughtful. "Perhaps Amelia has a point. Losing local support could cost us more in the long run." Murmurs of hesitant agreement echoed softly around the table, the balance subtly shifting in Amelia's favor. Roger exhaled heavily, sensing his leverage slipping away. "Fine," he relented, clearly displeased but grudgingly respectful. "We'll revisit this in a few months. For now, Brooks stays." As the board dispersed, Amelia sank back into her chair, relief washing over her. She looked up to see Ethan standing quietly by the doorway, having heard the entire exchange, his expression a mixture of disbelief and gratitude. "You didn't have to do that," he said quietly, stepping closer. "You risked everything. For me." She met his gaze warmly, her voice soft but unwavering. "You've done the same for me every day since we met. I believe in you, Ethan. I always will." He nodded slowly, eyes filled with genuine admiration and respect. "Thank you, Amelia. I won't forget this." As Ethan walked away, Amelia knew she'd made the right choice. For the first time, she felt completely certain, no matter the cost, she would always stand up for what she believed was right, even if it meant standing alone. The garage was quiet, empty except for the steady hum of the overhead lights and the occasional drip of oil onto concrete. Ethan leaned against the workbench, lost in thought, staring absently at the engine parts scattered before him. He couldn't shake the memory of Amelia standing firmly before the board, fiercely defending him with unwavering certainty. The look in her eyes, intense, genuine, determined, kept replaying in his mind, stirring emotions he'd carefully avoided until now. He sighed deeply, running a weary hand over his face. Amelia had slowly chipped away at the walls he'd instinctively built around himself. Her strength, vulnerability, and unexpected kindness had pulled him in little by little, until he found himself feeling something deeper, something undeniably personal. It was more than gratitude or friendship. It was something that left him feeling vulnerable and uncertain. But there was one problem. Ethan had no idea how Amelia truly felt. He recalled how quickly she had brushed off the town's gossip, how strongly she had insisted their relationship was purely professional. Those moments left him feeling unsure, confused, caught somewhere between hope and hesitation. A soft knock at the garage entrance startled him from his thoughts, and he turned to see Amelia standing cautiously at the doorway. The soft glow from the lights framed her face, highlighting the faint worry lines that spoke of her own hidden struggles. "Working late?" she asked softly, stepping closer, her heels clicking softly against the garage floor. "Just trying to clear my head," Ethan admitted quietly, offering a hesitant smile. Amelia paused, eyes searching his face carefully. "You've seemed distracted lately. Is everything okay?" He hesitated, weighing the risk of honesty against the safety of silence. "I've been thinking about the meeting, about how much you risked for me," he finally admitted, voice low and earnest. Amelia stepped closer, her eyes softening with sincerity. "You're worth the risk, Ethan. I meant every word I said." Her quiet intensity sent a rush of warmth through his chest, making his heart quicken slightly. He glanced away briefly, gathering the courage to continue. "Amelia, it's not just that He stopped, his voice catching slightly, heart hammering nervously. "I'm realizing that I care about you, maybe more than I should." Her expression softened further, but Ethan saw something cautious flicker briefly behind her eyes. "Ethan, you're important to me too," she replied carefully. "But we both have so much at stake. The business, the town. I don't know if there's room for anything else right now." Ethan nodded slowly, masking his disappointment as best he could. He understood her hesitation. It mirrored his own uncertainty perfectly. "I get it. The timing is complicated. I needed you to know." She stepped closer, reaching out gently to touch his arm, a gesture that filled him with both comfort and longing. "Thank you for being honest. Right now, we need each other as partners. Let's not lose that." He met her gaze again, sensing the sincerity of her words. She was right. They couldn't afford to complicate their partnership, not yet. "Of course," he agreed softly, forcing a reassuring smile. "We won't." As Amelia left, Ethan stood alone once more, feeling a deep ache mingled with hope. He'd opened his heart to her, and though she hadn't fully reciprocated, she hadn't rejected him either. It was enough, at least for now, to know that whatever happened next, Amelia understood exactly how he felt. Amelia stood by the office window, gazing out over the town, bathed in the golden hues of sunset. Her arms were crossed tightly, tension evident in her rigid posture. Ethan watched her silently from the doorway, sensing something deeply troubling behind her distant expression. "Amelia?" he ventured gently, stepping cautiously into the office. "You've seemed unsettled lately. Is everything all right?" She glanced at him briefly, and Ethan saw something raw and vulnerable flicker through her eyes before she quickly masked it again. "It's nothing," she replied softly, turning back toward the fading sunlight. But her voice betrayed her, slightly unsteady beneath her carefully maintained calm. "Hey," Ethan said quietly, approaching her slowly, his voice filled with genuine concern. "You don't have to face everything alone. I'm here." She hesitated, her shoulders trembling slightly as she exhaled deeply, finally turning fully toward him, eyes filled with a guarded sadness he'd never seen before. "There's something I've never told anyone, Ethan," she admitted quietly, vulnerability breaking through her carefully constructed walls. "It's why I keep people at a distance, why I'm so cautious." He waited patiently, sensing the immense courage it was taking her to open up. "You can trust me," he reassured her gently. Amelia closed her eyes briefly, gathering strength before continuing. "When I was younger, right after my father first built Hartwell Enterprises, we were targeted by competitors. They didn't just attack the business, they targeted our family. My father refused to give in, so they went after me instead." Ethan's stomach twisted painfully at the raw pain reflected in Amelia's expression. "What happened?" he asked softly, afraid of the answer but knowing she needed to speak. Her voice dropped to a shaky whisper, eyes bright with tears she stubbornly refused to let fall. "They threatened me, followed me, tried to break my spirit. One night they took things further. I was driving home, and they ran my car off the road. I survived, but it took months to recover, physically and emotionally." Her voice trembled slightly, but she forced herself to continue, determination overcoming the deep-seated trauma. "After that, I learned to shut everyone out. I built walls to protect myself, to never let anyone close enough to hurt me again." Ethan moved instinctively, stepping forward and gently placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. She flinched slightly at the unexpected touch, then relaxed as she recognized his genuine empathy. "Amelia, I'm so sorry," he murmured sincerely, his voice full of quiet strength. "But you don't have to carry this alone anymore. Not here, not with me." She looked up at him, her carefully guarded expression finally breaking fully, revealing the depth of loneliness and fear she had long hidden beneath her confident exterior. "I've never told anyone this, Ethan. I never thought I could." "You're safe here," he whispered reassuringly, his grip on her shoulder gentle yet firm. "No one will ever hurt you again, I promise." As Amelia met his unwavering gaze, she felt something shift inside her, something warm and comforting, breaking through years of carefully built defenses. She nodded slowly, allowing herself the smallest smile, one that reached her eyes with true warmth for the first time in years. Ethan had given her something she'd lost a long time ago, hope, trust, and perhaps the courage to finally heal. The sound of sirens shattered the peaceful morning, slicing through Ethan's chest with sharp anxiety as he raced toward the garage. His heart pounded heavily, dread pooling in his stomach when he saw smoke rising above the building, thick and dark against the bright morning sky. Ethan sprinted toward the chaotic scene, pushing past worried townspeople gathered outside. The smell of smoke, burnt rubber, and gasoline filled the air, heavy and choking. Firefighters shouted urgently as they moved swiftly, hoses spraying streams of water into the smoldering workshop. "What happened?" Ethan demanded, breathless and frantic, searching the crowd desperately. He finally spotted Amelia near the edge of the lot, standing rigid and pale, arms tightly folded, eyes wide with shock and fear. I don't know," she stammered, visibly shaken. "There was an explosion. Something went wrong with the fuel tank while one of the guys was working. Thankfully, nobody was seriously hurt, but the damage—" Her voice trailed off, eyes reflecting the devastation that gripped Ethan's heart tightly. The garage was their lifeline, her reputation, his livelihood, and the trust of an entire community hinged upon its survival. Nearby, firefighters finally subdued the flames, leaving behind a charred and damaged shell of what had once been their thriving workshop. Pete approached, soot-smudged and shaken, looking at Ethan and Amelia with haunted eyes. "It was my fault," Pete admitted hoarsely, voice trembling. "I should have double-checked the fuel line. This never should have happened." Amelia stepped closer, compassion overtaking her initial shock. "Pete, no one is blaming you. Accidents happen. We'll figure this out together." But Ethan saw the uncertainty behind her carefully masked expression. He knew what this disaster meant: scrutiny, blame, and potential ruin. Townspeople, already cautious of Amelia's ownership, now whispered openly around them, suspicion and doubt clear in their guarded looks. Roger Barlow's car arrived abruptly, pulling up sharply beside the damaged building. He stepped out, eyes narrowing critically at the scene, his sharp gaze settling on Amelia. "I warned you," he said coldly, shaking his head in thinly veiled anger. "This will cripple our reputation. You had your chance, Amelia. The board will have to reconsider your position." Amelia paled, but her expression hardened with determination, despite her visible fear. "We will rebuild, Roger," she said steadily, meeting his stern glare evenly. "This is not the end." Roger glanced skeptically at Ethan before turning abruptly, striding back to his car without another word. Ethan stepped closer to Amelia, feeling an overwhelming surge of protectiveness. "He's wrong, Amelia," Ethan whispered fiercely. "We'll get through this together. We can't let this setback define us." She looked up at him, eyes swimming with unshed tears, her voice wavering only slightly. "I hope you're right." As they stood together amidst the smoldering aftermath, Ethan knew the crisis had forged something deeper between them, testing their resolve and binding them closer than ever. But the threat remained heavy in the air, uncertain and overwhelming, leaving him to wonder whether their combined strength would truly be enough to save everything they had worked so hard to build. Ethan stood amidst the charred debris of the workshop, a stark and painful reminder of how quickly everything could change. He could still taste the acrid smoke in the air, the scent lingering stubbornly as a bitter memory. Behind him, Amelia paced nervously, her phone clutched tightly, tense words spilling into urgent calls with board members and insurance representatives. Frustration tightened his chest with each overheard phrase. Immediate assessment, full investigation, responsibility. Ethan felt something raw and vulnerable inside him flare at the distant corporate tone Amelia had suddenly adopted. He turned sharply toward her, unable to hold back his anger any longer. "Is this how we're handling things now? Covering our backs, calling lawyers, and pointing fingers?" Amelia abruptly ended her call, turning to face him with weary eyes. "We have no choice, Ethan. The board expects clear answers. People are already talking, doubting me, doubting us." Ethan's jaw clenched tightly, his voice edged with hurt. "And where does that leave Pete? Do we throw him under the bus because it's convenient for the board? This is his livelihood, Amelia." Amelia's eyes flashed, her voice trembling slightly with restrained emotion. "You think I want this? You think I don't care? I'm fighting to save this place just as much as you are. But we have to show accountability, or we lose everything." Ethan shook his head bitterly, stepping closer, his gaze unwavering. "Accountability? Pete made a mistake. He's human. People here understand that. They trust us because we're fair, not because we sacrifice our own." She stiffened, visibly wounded by his accusation. "Do you really think I'd just sacrifice him, after everything I've done to protect you, protect everyone here?" "You sound like the board now," Ethan shot back sharply, regret filling him immediately as he saw her recoil, pain flaring in her eyes. "Amelia, wait." "No, Ethan," she interrupted, her voice quieter, heartbreakingly vulnerable now. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm becoming exactly what everyone here fears, a corporate outsider." He reached out instinctively, regretting the harshness of his words. "That's not what I meant. I know you care." She stepped back, shaking her head sadly. "I thought you trusted me," she whispered, voice breaking slightly. "I thought you believed in my intentions." "I do," Ethan murmured helplessly, frustration mixing with guilt. "But right now, my actions are trying to protect this place, Ethan. To protect you," she said, eyes shining with hurt. "But if you can't see that, maybe we don't know each other as well as we thought." She turned abruptly, walking swiftly away through the damaged workshop, leaving Ethan feeling hollow and uncertain. Trust, the very foundation they'd carefully built, suddenly seemed fragile, dangerously close to shattering completely. Ethan stood alone among the wreckage, deeply shaken by their confrontation. He knew Amelia was genuinely trying to save the garage, but the methods, those cold corporate decisions, were pushing them further apart, forcing him to question if they could ever truly bridge the gap between their worlds. In the days following their tense confrontation, Amelia seemed to vanish behind a carefully constructed wall, her presence at the garage fading gradually, until Ethan felt her absence as sharply as a physical ache. She stopped meeting his eyes, stopped confiding in him, stopped asking for his opinion. She immersed herself in endless phone calls, private meetings, and solitary strategy sessions behind closed office doors. Ethan watched from afar, his frustration mounting with each passing day. He wanted to reach out, to bridge the growing distance, but each time he tried, Amelia offered only polite, distant replies that stung worse than outright rejection. Late one evening, Ethan lingered near the doorway to her office, hesitant but determined. He knocked softly before entering. Amelia sat hunched over her desk, documents spread chaotically before her, exhaustion written plainly across her features. "Amelia," he began gently, stepping closer. "Talk to me. You don't have to handle all of this alone." She looked up, startled at his unexpected intrusion, quickly masking her vulnerability with detached professionalism. "Everything is under control, Ethan. I appreciate your concern, but I have it handled." He shook his head, a painful heaviness settling in his chest. "We're supposed to be in this together, but lately you've shut me out. I'm on your side. Why won't you trust me?" Her eyes flickered briefly with sadness before hardening defensively again. "It's not about trust. The board expects me to handle this crisis swiftly. It's my responsibility." Ethan stepped forward, frustration and concern blending in his voice. "And what about the people who depend on you here? Your isolation is sending a clear message. You don't trust any of us." Amelia's gaze snapped sharply to his, anger flaring briefly before giving way to quiet despair. "That's not true. I'm doing this to protect everyone, especially you. You were clear before. You don't agree with my methods, so I've handled it myself." Ethan's voice softened, hurt evident beneath the calm tone. "I questioned your methods because I care, not because I don't trust you." She exhaled shakily, her defenses wavering momentarily, allowing him to glimpse the vulnerable woman hiding behind the poised CEO facade. "Maybe caring is part of the problem, Ethan," she murmured quietly, eyes averted to hide her turmoil. "Maybe the lines got blurred, and it became too complicated." His heart twisted at her admission, at the implication that his feelings had somehow driven her away. "Amelia, please." "I think we should keep things strictly professional for now," she interrupted gently, though the strain in her voice betrayed how much the words cost her. "I need clarity to fix this mess, and clearly our partnership has clouded things." He stood frozen, feeling a painful sense of loss and rejection, but recognizing the finality in her words. Slowly Ethan nodded, retreating toward the door. "If that's what you need." As he left her office, Ethan felt an overwhelming sense of helplessness, realizing the deep connection they'd carefully built was slipping away, replaced by distance and mistrust. Amelia's withdrawal left him questioning everything he thought they had. The space between them felt wider than ever, and Ethan wondered if they could ever bridge it again, or if this crisis had finally broken something that might never be repaired. Ethan stood alone in the dimly lit garage, the muted glow from his computer casting long shadows across the room. His eyes were tired, strained from hours of combing through documents, emails, and security footage. Since Amelia's withdrawal, he'd felt driven by a fierce determination to prove her innocence, to ease the burden she'd stubbornly shouldered alone. The garage's reputation teetered on the edge, the community's trust frayed by uncertainty. Amelia had borne the brunt of suspicion from both the town and her corporate board, and despite their recent distance, Ethan couldn't bear to watch her face it alone. Frustration simmered beneath his skin, his fingers flying rapidly over the keyboard as he reviewed security footage once again, scanning carefully through every detail. Suddenly, his eyes caught something unusual, a flicker of movement near the fuel line just minutes before the accident occurred. Ethan's pulse quickened. As he rewound and replayed the footage several times, adrenaline spiking as certainty replaced suspicion. It wasn't Pete. It wasn't negligence. It was deliberate sabotage. Heart pounding, Ethan traced the shadowy figure's movements, noting distinctive markings on a uniform, marks belonging to a supplier from a rival company. The realization hit Ethan like a physical blow, anger flaring sharply through him. The accident had never been accidental. It had been orchestrated, and Amelia had unjustly borne the weight of blame. He wasted no time, gathering the footage and evidence swiftly, carefully organizing it to present the undeniable proof Amelia needed. Ethan moved cautiously, understanding the gravity of what he held. If handled incorrectly, it could backfire, leaving Amelia more vulnerable than before. Hours later, Ethan stood quietly outside Amelia's office door, his heart heavy with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. He knocked softly before stepping inside, finding Amelia hunched over her desk, visibly drained and surrounded by mountains of paperwork. She looked up startled, quickly masking her surprise with guarded professionalism. "Ethan, what is it?" she asked softly, eyes weary yet cautious. "I have something you need to see," Ethan replied calmly, stepping closer and placing the file carefully on her desk. "It proves the accident wasn't negligence. It was sabotage. This clears your name, Amelia." She stared at him, shock and disbelief flickering across her face before quickly opening the file. Her eyes widened as she scanned the evidence, her hands trembling slightly. "How did you—" "I couldn't let you take the fall," Ethan admitted quietly, sincerity filling his voice. "You deserve the truth, Amelia. You deserve justice." Amelia's carefully maintained composure finally broke, and she looked up at him, eyes glistening with relief and gratitude. "Ethan, I don't know how to thank you, especially after the way I shut you out." He shook his head gently, interrupting her softly. "I understand why you pulled away. But you're not alone, Amelia. No matter what happens, I'm here." Her eyes met his, something unspoken but deeply meaningful passing between them, repairing at least some of the wounds caused by their recent distance. "Thank you," she whispered again, voices thick with emotion. "You have no idea how much this means." Ethan nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose and connection. They weren't fully healed, not yet, but the discovery gave them something crucial: hope, trust, and perhaps the chance to rebuild what they'd nearly lost. The town hall buzzed with restless murmurs as townspeople gathered for the emergency community meeting. Faces filled with concern, suspicion, and uncertainty stared forward, awaiting answers about the future of their beloved garage and the outsider they had begun to blame. Ethan stood near the front, his nerves thrumming with anxiety beneath a composed exterior. Beside him, Amelia sat silently, her posture rigid, her gaze fixed resolutely ahead as if bracing herself for a blow. Ethan knew she had spent countless nights preparing herself for the worst. Blame, condemnation, the loss of everything she'd fought so hard to achieve. Roger Barlow stepped forward, commanding the room's attention. Given recent events, the board has serious reservations about Miss Hartwell's ability to manage the garage effectively. Her oversight has led to considerable damage. "Wait!" Ethan interjected sharply, rising from his seat, his voice cutting clearly through the room. Every head turned toward him, curiosity and surprise evident. Amelia's eyes widened slightly, unsure of his intentions. "Before this goes any further, everyone needs to see something." Roger's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "What exactly are you implying, Ethan?" Ethan stepped forward confidently, holding up a small USB drive. "The accident wasn't Amelia's fault. It wasn't negligence on her part, or ours. Someone deliberately sabotaged the garage." Shocked murmurs erupted across the room. Roger stiffened visibly, skepticism etched clearly in his features. "Do you have proof of this serious accusation?" Ethan nodded firmly, handing the USB to the town clerk, who quickly set up the footage to project on the hall's large screen. Silence blanketed the room as the security video played, clearly capturing the shadowy figure tampering with the fuel line moments before the devastating explosion. The uniform's distinctive logo stood out prominently, linking the sabotage directly to a rival company. Gasps of shock and disbelief rippled throughout the hall, eyes shifting to Amelia with newfound sympathy and regret. She sat frozen, relief and vindication flickering across her guarded expression. "This wasn't an accident," Ethan continued strongly, stepping forward again. "It was deliberate. An attempt to ruin Amelia's reputation and force the garage to close. She was unfairly blamed. She's fought harder than anyone to keep this place alive, to protect our jobs and community. She deserves your trust, not your suspicion." The room grew silent again, tension thick as eyes shifted uncertainly between Amelia and Roger. Finally, Clara rose slowly from her seat, her usually stern eyes softening visibly. "We owe Miss Hartwell an apology," Clara declared firmly, her voice unwavering. "We judged her without all the facts. She's proven herself. We need to stand with her now." Murmurs of agreement quickly spread, nods and supportive glances directed toward Amelia. She looked around the room, visibly moved by the genuine acceptance finally offered. Roger exhaled heavily, recognizing his position was lost. "It appears we've made a mistake," he conceded reluctantly. "Miss Hartwell, you have our apologies. Clearly, you deserve the community's full trust and support." Amelia stood slowly, meeting the crowd's renewed respect with genuine humility and grace. "Thank you," she said softly, voice steady but touched by emotion. Her eyes turned gratefully toward Ethan. "And thank you, Ethan, for believing in me when I needed it most." Ethan nodded quietly, warmth filling his chest, as he realized what this moment truly meant. Amelia's reputation restored, the community's trust rebuilt, and perhaps, finally, a chance for the two of them to fully heal the wounds that had threatened to tear them apart. Evening had fallen softly over the town, the gentle twilight painting the sky in muted shades of purple and orange. Ethan stood near the open garage doors, breathing in deeply as a gentle breeze whispered through, cooling the lingering heat of the long day. Behind him, the quiet footsteps he'd grown familiar with approached cautiously, hesitantly. "Ethan," Amelia's voice came softly, breaking through the quiet around them. He turned slowly, taking in the vulnerable expression on her face, her eyes wide and filled with an uncertainty he'd rarely seen her reveal. The protective walls she'd carefully built had finally crumbled, replaced by openness and sincerity. "Hey," he replied gently, unsure what more he could say after the emotional roller coaster they'd both endured. A tense silence lingered between them, charged with all the things still left unspoken. Amelia took a deep, steadying breath, her voice trembling slightly as she spoke. "I owe you a real apology, not just for pushing you away, but for doubting your intentions. You stood by me, even when I gave you every reason not to." Ethan's eyes softened, stepping closer. "Amelia, I understood why you did what you did. You were trying to protect us both." "But I should have trusted you," she interrupted softly, regret shimmering clearly in her eyes. "I let fear cloud my judgment. I was so afraid of losing everything, my position, the garage, the community's trust, that I didn't see what was right in front of me. I didn't realize the one thing I couldn't afford to lose was you." His heart quickened at her words, a surge of warmth filling his chest. He studied her carefully, searching her expression for sincerity, and found only genuine remorse and hope reflected clearly back at him. "I'm still here," he assured her softly. "I never really left." Amelia stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Can you forgive me?" Ethan reached out, gently touching her hand, the simple contact sending warmth through him. "There's nothing to forgive. We've both made mistakes, but we're stronger for having faced them." Her eyes filled with tears she stubbornly refused to let fall, her voice wavering slightly with emotion. "I was so used to fighting battles alone, I didn't know how to let someone else in. Until you showed me how." "You're not alone anymore," Ethan murmured firmly, gently tightening his grip on her hand. "We'll face whatever comes together from now on." Amelia smiled softly, warmth returning fully to her expression as their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. "Together," she repeated quietly, the word filled with a promise she intended to keep. He leaned forward slowly, resting his forehead lightly against hers, the space between them closing as they shared a moment of quiet, powerful connection. For the first time since the chaos had begun, Ethan felt a profound sense of peace, of belonging. As the stars began to appear overhead, their bond deepened in the quiet comfort of reconciliation, the wounds of mistrust and misunderstanding finally healing. They stood united, ready to face whatever lay ahead, secure in the knowledge that whatever trials came next, neither would face them alone again. Amelia stood at the head of the polished conference table, her palms pressed flat against its cool surface to steady herself. The boardroom was thick with tension, the eyes of every member trained sharply on her, waiting to scrutinize her every word. She could feel her pulse quicken, but she kept her expression calm and resolute, determined not to waver. Roger Barlow broke the silence, his voice carrying an edge of impatience. "Amelia, the sabotage incident has put our entire company at risk. Despite the evidence Ethan Brooks provided, questions remain about your ability to manage the garage effectively. It seems personal connections have clouded your judgment." Amelia met Roger's challenging gaze firmly, her voice clear and composed. "My judgment wasn't clouded. It was strengthened. Ethan's actions have proven beyond any doubt his dedication, integrity, and loyalty. Without his quick thinking, our reputation would have been irreparably damaged." Another board member, Susan Hargrove, leaned forward skeptically. "Yet your close relationship with Mr. Brooks has clearly raised concerns. The community's trust is essential, but we cannot risk the appearance of favoritism or weakness." Amelia straightened further, her tone steady, unwavering. "Ethan Brooks embodies exactly what Hartwell Enterprises claims to represent: integrity, hard work, and community commitment. Yes, I trust him personally, but it's because he's consistently proven himself trustworthy professionally. If that kind of loyalty and dedication is considered a weakness, perhaps our priorities need reassessment." Roger's eyes narrowed, leaning back slowly. "We understand your position, Amelia, but this business isn't built on sentiment. It's built on results." Amelia stepped forward, her voice growing stronger, determination blazing in her eyes. And that's exactly what Ethan has provided. Results. The garage's reputation has recovered precisely because he stood up for what was right. Despite enormous personal risk, he showed courage and loyalty. Those are results I proudly stand behind. A tense silence settled over the room, eyes shifting uncertainly among the board members. Amelia felt their hesitation, and she seized the moment, continuing firmly, "We have a choice right now. We can reward the loyalty and integrity of employees like Ethan, or we can prove to everyone watching us that corporate interests outweigh human values. What message do you want to send?" Susan exchanged glances with other board members, clearly reconsidering. Finally, she nodded slowly, her tone softer. "Perhaps we've underestimated your perspective, Amelia. Your points are valid, but understand our concerns aren't trivial." Amelia relaxed slightly, acknowledging Susan's words respectfully. "I fully understand. But true leadership isn't just about profits. It's about valuing and protecting the people who help us achieve those profits. Ethan Brooks, and others like him, deserve our support." Roger cleared his throat, visibly uncomfortable, but finally conceding with reluctant respect. "Very well, Amelia. The board will defer to your judgment this time. But be cautious. Your decisions will continue to be carefully evaluated." Amelia nodded calmly, meeting each board member's eyes with quiet confidence. "I expect nothing less." As the board dispersed, Amelia exhaled slowly, feeling a powerful surge of relief and pride. She'd defended not only Ethan, but the very principles she'd chosen to represent. And for the first time, she felt truly confident in her leadership, knowing she'd stood firm for what mattered most. Sunlight spilled warmly through the garage windows, catching the edges of the neatly arranged tools and polished surfaces. Amelia leaned against Ethan's workbench, quietly watching him sketch ideas onto a large blueprint spread out between them. She admired the passion shining clearly in his eyes, the quiet intensity as he mapped out his vision for the garage's future. "You've been thinking about this expansion for a long time, haven't you?" she asked softly, a gentle curiosity coloring her voice. Ethan nodded slowly, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Years," he admitted quietly, glancing up briefly, vulnerability clear in his expression. "But dreams don't always pay the bills." Amelia reached across the blueprint, gently touching his hand, her voice firm yet tender. "This dream could. With the right support, your vision is exactly what Hartwell Enterprises needs. It's personal, it's authentic, it's you." Ethan met her gaze, surprise and gratitude mingling in his eyes. "You really think so?" She squeezed his hand reassuringly, warmth radiating between them. "I know so. Ethan, you've always put the community first. It's time someone put you first. Your ideas could transform this garage into something extraordinary, not just profitable, but meaningful." His eyes softened, deeply touched by her belief in him. "I never imagined this dream could actually become a reality," he admitted quietly, "especially after everything we've been through." Amelia's smile deepened, her eyes sincere and steady. "We've proven we can handle anything together. Now, I want to invest in you, not just financially, but in every way that counts." Ethan took a deep breath, hope blossoming warmly within him. For the first time, he truly allowed himself to believe that his dreams could be realized. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice thick with genuine emotion. "You have no idea what this means to me." Amelia stepped closer, their eyes locked in quiet intensity, the blueprint beneath their joined hands symbolizing more than just a business partnership. It represented trust, belief, and a shared future. "Your dreams matter, Ethan," she whispered gently, her voice steady but filled with heartfelt sincerity. "You've always believed in others, supported them, lifted them up. It's your turn now." He felt a surge of warmth spread through his chest, profoundly grateful and deeply moved by her unwavering support. "Together?" he asked quietly, already knowing her answer but needing to hear her say it. "Together," she confirmed softly, her voice filled with promise and certainty. They stood quietly, side by side, allowing the moment to sink in, the realization of dreams finally within reach. The garage was more than a workplace now. It had become a symbol of everything they'd overcome, everything they'd built, and everything still to come. As Ethan's vision took shape clearly on the blueprint, Amelia knew this expansion was about more than just business success. It was about a bond they'd nurtured carefully through every trial they faced, built upon respect, trust, and genuine partnership. Together, they were not only building a dream, they were forging an unbreakable future. The evening air was cool and crisp, the garage empty and quiet except for the soft hum of distant traffic. Ethan stood near the open bay doors, the amber glow of twilight casting long shadows across the workshop floor. Amelia joined him silently, her presence warm and comforting, even without words. They stood side by side, both aware of the subtle tension that had been building between them, a powerful connection that neither had openly acknowledged. Ethan felt his heartbeat quicken, a rush of nervous anticipation flowing through him. He glanced sideways at Amelia, taking in her thoughtful expression and the gentle way her hair moved with the evening breeze. "You ever think about how things might have turned out differently?" Ethan finally asked softly, breaking the silence with a quiet vulnerability. "If your car hadn't broken down right here?" Amelia smiled gently, her eyes distant but warm. "More often than I should admit," she murmured, her voice carrying an unspoken depth. "Sometimes it feels like fate brought me here, like maybe it was supposed to happen exactly as it did." Ethan turned fully toward her, his gaze steady and serious. "I think it was meant to happen too. Meeting you changed everything for me." Her eyes softened, her breath catching slightly. "Ethan, I never imagined someone like you could exist. Someone so genuine, loyal, and strong. You've given me something I thought I'd lost a long time ago." "What's that?" he asked quietly, stepping closer, feeling the air between them charged with an electric warmth. "Trust," Amelia whispered sincerely, meeting his eyes with raw emotion. "And hope." He reached out gently, carefully taking her hand in his, their fingers intertwining naturally. "Amelia, I care about you, more deeply than I ever thought possible. I know we've tried to deny it, but I can't ignore it anymore." Amelia squeezed his hand gently, her voice trembling slightly with emotion. "I've been afraid of losing everything again, afraid of feeling this strongly about someone. But with you, it feels right. It feels safe." Ethan gently brushed a strand of hair away from her face, fingertips lingering lightly against her cheek. "You don't have to be afraid with me. We've faced the hardest times together already. I know we can handle anything." She stepped closer, eyes locked on his with undeniable intensity, her voice soft yet determined. "Ethan, I'm tired of hiding how I feel. I love you." Ethan's heart soared at her words, warmth flooding every inch of him. "I love you too, Amelia, more than I've ever loved anyone." Their foreheads touched softly, breaths mingling in the quiet intimacy of the moment. Amelia lifted her face slowly, and Ethan gently cupped her cheek, guiding her closer until their lips finally met in a tender, heartfelt kiss. In that powerful embrace, all the walls they'd built around themselves fell away completely, leaving only honesty, vulnerability, and deep, mutual affection. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms beneath the gentle twilight, Ethan knew this revelation was more than just romance. It was a bond stronger than anything they'd faced together, a connection forged through trials, strengthened by trust, and deepened by love. Ethan and Amelia stepped into Clara's diner together, the small bell above the door ringing sharply, drawing the eyes of every customer inside. Conversations dimmed abruptly, replaced by a tense, curious silence that filled the room like an oppressive fog. Amelia hesitated, clearly feeling the weight of every gaze. Ethan reached down quietly, his fingers entwining reassuringly with hers, silently offering strength. Clara approached them, eyebrows raised in mild surprise as her gaze dropped to their clasped hands, then slowly lifted back up to meet Ethan's steady, confident expression. "Morning, Ethan." "Amelia," she greeted carefully, her tone neutral but guarded. "Morning, Clara," Ethan replied firmly, offering a gentle, unapologetic smile. Amelia echoed his greeting quietly, though her eyes nervously scanned the room, sensing lingering skepticism and judgment behind curious gazes. "Guess rumors about you two were true after all," Clara observed dryly, her eyes sharp yet not entirely unkind. Ethan tightened his hold on Amelia's hand gently. "We wanted to set things straight ourselves," he said calmly, addressing Clara directly but ensuring his voice carried to those around them. "Amelia and I are together. I know people have had their doubts, but she's part of our community now. We'd appreciate your support." Murmurs rippled through the diner, cautious yet intrigued. A man seated nearby muttered something indistinctly, clearly skeptical. Ethan felt Amelia tense beside him, her face flushing slightly at the quiet criticism. "I understand why some might feel uneasy," Amelia suddenly spoke up, her voice clear despite her evident nervousness. "I didn't grow up here, and I made mistakes. But this place, this community, it's become important to me. And Ethan has shown me what loyalty and kindness truly mean. I care deeply about him, and I promise to always respect this community as much as he does." The diner remained quiet for a tense moment before Clara finally spoke again, her voice noticeably softer. "Ethan has always had good judgment. If he believes in you, Amelia, maybe we all should give you the benefit of the doubt, too." Slowly, cautious nods of agreement rippled through the crowd, uncertainty giving way to tentative acceptance. The tension in Amelia's shoulders visibly eased, her grip on Ethan's hand relaxing with relief. "Thank you, Clara," Ethan murmured sincerely, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Just promise me you two will take good care of each other," Clara replied gently, a small smile tugging at her usually stern expression. Ethan smiled warmly, glancing at Amelia with genuine affection. "That's a promise." As they took their seats, conversations around them gradually resumed, this time lighter, less tense. The initial hostility softened, replaced with cautious curiosity and subtle warmth. Amelia glanced at Ethan, eyes bright with relief and appreciation. "You were incredible," he whispered gently, squeezing her hand under the table. "So were you," she replied softly, the warmth of her smile reaching deeply into his heart. Surrounded by the subtle hum of acceptance, Ethan felt a profound sense of gratitude. They had faced down gossip, judgment, and prejudice, and emerged stronger, their bond unshaken by the community's doubts. For the first time, Ethan truly believed their love had the strength to overcome anything. The morning sun rose gently, casting a golden glow over the freshly painted exterior of the newly expanded garage. Colorful banners fluttered softly in the breeze, proudly announcing its grand reopening to the town. Amelia stood beside Ethan, her eyes bright with nervous anticipation as they watched townspeople gather curiously at the garage doors, their faces eager yet hesitant. Ethan reached over, gently taking Amelia's hand, squeezing reassuringly. "Ready?" he asked softly, his voice filled with warmth and steady confidence. She met his gaze, drawing strength from his calm certainty. "Ready?" she replied firmly, though her voice trembled slightly with emotion. Together, they stepped forward to address the gathered crowd. Ethan cleared his throat gently, drawing attention as the murmurs quieted down. "Thank you all for coming today. This garage has always been about community, about helping each other, supporting one another. Thanks to Amelia's vision and your support, we've been able to grow into something even better." Amelia stepped forward, her voice clear despite the butterflies fluttering inside her. "I understand that trust takes time. I've made mistakes and faced doubts, but your community, the strength, honesty, and heart of it, has inspired me to become a better leader. This expansion isn't just about business, it's our promise to serve and support you." Quiet applause rippled softly through the crowd, growing louder as Clara stepped forward, nodding approvingly. "Ethan and Amelia have shown us what partnership and determination can achieve," Clara declared warmly. "They've earned our support and respect." Cheers echoed, heartfelt and genuine, and the last traces of lingering doubt dissolved as townspeople smiled, nodded, and stepped closer, eager to explore the newly expanded garage. Ethan and Amelia exchanged a look of deep relief and mutual pride. Inside, the spacious workshop gleamed brightly with new equipment and neatly arranged tools. Mechanics proudly demonstrated the modernized facilities to visitors, answering questions enthusiastically. Ethan watched with quiet satisfaction as Pete guided families through, proudly explaining improvements that would enhance their service. As the community mingled warmly around them, Amelia leaned gently into Ethan, her voice quietly emotional. "We did it. Together." He smiled warmly, wrapping an arm around her shoulder with gentle affection. "We did. I never doubted we could." Amelia glanced around the bustling, cheerful space, taking in the smiling faces, the restored trust, the renewed sense of belonging. "It feels like home now," she murmured softly, genuinely moved. "That's because it is," Ethan whispered sincerely. "Home isn't just a place, it's where we feel connected, supported, and loved." Amelia's eyes met his, reflecting deep affection and gratitude. "Then I've found mine." Ethan gently leaned forward, softly pressing a tender kiss to her forehead, feeling her relax fully into the embrace. Around them, townspeople offered supportive smiles, genuine warmth radiating throughout the expanded garage. In that moment, Ethan and Amelia felt more united than ever, their strength drawn from the community's acceptance and the bond they'd built together. As the celebrations continued, Ethan knew this launch marked more than just an expansion. It was a powerful testament to their perseverance, unity, and shared dreams. Together, they had overcome every obstacle, growing stronger with each challenge, finally finding success, trust, and true belonging. Amelia stood quietly at the center of the bustling garage floor, the excitement of the grand reopening still buzzing warmly in the air. Ethan watched her from the side, sensing the subtle tension beneath her calm demeanor, knowing something important was about to happen. She met his gaze briefly, warmth and determination mingling clearly in her eyes. The crowd quieted as Amelia cleared her throat softly, stepping forward confidently. "Before we conclude today, I have one final announcement to make, one that I've been eagerly anticipating." Ethan's pulse quickened as the garage grew quiet, every eye turning toward Amelia with expectant curiosity. She smiled gently, her voice steady yet deeply sincere. "As you all know, this garage wouldn't exist today without the unwavering dedication, vision, and integrity of Ethan Brooks. He has supported this community tirelessly, even at great personal cost." Ethan felt warmth rise in his chest, modesty mingling with pride as he felt the genuine affection in her words. Amelia turned fully toward him, holding his gaze warmly. "Ethan, your leadership, honesty, and selflessness have not only inspired me, they've reminded me what true partnership means. I want everyone here today to understand clearly. Ethan isn't simply an employee or a colleague. He's my partner, in every sense of the word." The crowd murmured excitedly, eyes flickering between them with surprise and growing approval. Amelia continued, her voice firm and full of conviction. "That's why, starting today, Ethan Brooks will officially join me as an equal partner in this business." A wave of applause erupted from the gathered townspeople, heartfelt and enthusiastic. Ethan stood momentarily frozen, genuinely stunned by Amelia's bold and heartfelt declaration. Slowly he stepped forward to join her, heart swelling with profound gratitude. "You didn't have to do this," he murmured softly, touched deeply by her gesture. "Yes, I did," she replied sincerely, her voice carrying clearly enough for others to hear. "You've earned this, Ethan. You've always stood beside me, believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. This partnership, it's our promise to always stand together." Clara stepped forward, smiling warmly, her usually stern eyes glistening with emotion. "Ethan, Amelia, this town is proud to stand with you both. You've earned this trust. You deserve every success." Ethan met Amelia's eyes, the bond between them stronger than ever, their partnership solidified by trust, mutual respect, and genuine affection. "Thank you, Amelia," he whispered earnestly, unable to fully convey the depth of his gratitude in mere words. She squeezed his hand gently, eyes softening with affection. "Thank you for everything." Together, they turned back to face the cheering crowd, Ethan feeling an overwhelming sense of pride and fulfillment. The partnership Amelia had boldly proclaimed was about far more than business. It symbolized trust, unity, and the powerful connection they'd carefully nurtured through every trial they faced. Standing side by side, Ethan knew this moment wasn't simply about recognition or success. It represented a commitment stronger than either had imagined possible. It was a promise they made to each other, the town, and their shared future. They would always stand united, equal partners bound by loyalty, love, and unwavering support. Ethan and Amelia sat side by side on the hood of his old truck, the quiet evening sky spreading above them, painted in gentle hues of purple and gold as the sun slowly dipped behind the horizon. A comfortable silence lingered, filled with warmth and anticipation for the future they'd begun to build together. Ethan glanced at Amelia, his heart filled with a profound sense of gratitude for everything they'd overcome. "Did you ever imagine we'd end up here?" he asked softly, a gentle smile playing across his lips. Amelia chuckled quietly, shaking her head. "Honestly, never. I couldn't have predicted any of this. But now, looking back, it feels like it was always supposed to happen." Ethan nodded thoughtfully, taking her hand gently in his. "We've come through a lot together, business struggles, misunderstandings, sabotage. Yet, here we are, stronger for it." She squeezed his hand softly, warmth glowing brightly in her eyes. "Because we faced it all together. You've taught me how to trust, how to believe in myself and in us. For the first time, the future doesn't scare me, it excites me." He turned slightly toward her, eyes sincere and tender. "Speaking of the future, where do you see us going from here?" Amelia smiled warmly, leaning comfortably into him. "Together, wherever we go. I want to keep growing the garage, expanding our impact in the community. But more than that, I want us to grow. I want to build something real and lasting, not just as business partners, but as equals in every part of our lives." Ethan gently wrapped an arm around her shoulder, drawing her close. "I want that too. Partnership, trust, respect, all the things we fought to earn. And love, most of all." Amelia rested her head lightly on his shoulder, her voice soft and sincere. "You've given me a life I didn't even know I wanted, Ethan. You've given me a home." Ethan felt emotion tighten his chest, profound affection filling every word. "You've given me the same. No matter what comes next, I promise I'll always stand by you, supporting you, protecting you, believing in you." Amelia lifted her face gently, meeting his eyes with a gaze filled with unwavering trust and genuine affection. "And I promise I'll always be right here, loving you, supporting you, believing in you, no matter what challenges we face." Slowly, Ethan leaned down, capturing her lips softly in a tender kiss, their promises sealing into something deeper and unbreakable. Beneath the gentle glow of twilight, their bond felt more secure than ever, the future stretching ahead, full of possibilities they would embrace together. As stars began appearing gently overhead, Ethan and Amelia stayed wrapped in each other's arms, secure in the powerful trust, respect, and love they'd built. Together, they'd created a foundation that would withstand any challenge. They knew with absolute certainty that whatever the future held, they'd face it hand in hand, hearts bound forever by the powerful journey they'd taken and the lifetime of dreams still waiting to be fulfilled.